It's 7 o'clock and everyone who's going to be here is here, so we'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, so welcome everybody to the April meeting of the Union Township Planning Commission, and we'll have roll call, please.
All right. Albrecht is excused. Buckley?
Here.
Gross?
Here.
LaBelle?
Here.
Lapp?
Here.
McDonald?
Here.
Shingles is also excused. Thering?
Here.
And Squadrito.
Here.
All right, everyone's here.
Okay, thank you. So let's see. So we have our agenda. So before you. So we have one new business item and one other business item. Are there any other items that people are aware of that should be brought before us tonight? Anybody have any others? If not, we can have a motion to approve the agenda.
Move to approve.
I'll second.
So motion by Gross to approve the agenda and second by McDonald. Is there any discussion? Okay, I'll ask for a voice vote. All in favor of approving the agenda, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries. Next item is approval of the minutes. So we last met on March 21st. So you get the March 21st minutes. Are there any corrections to the March 21st minutes? Okay, if not, we can have a motion to approve those.
I move to approve the minutes.
Support.
So motion by Lapp, second by Gross to approve the minutes as submitted. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so the minutes are approved. Next item is correspondence, board reports, presentations. I heard the conversation prior to the meeting, but I'll call on Commissioner Thering anyway because you're on the agenda. Updates from Board of Trustees.
Thank you, sir, and this evening I have nothing to comment.
Okay. Any questions for Commissioner Thering on trustees related matters? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on. Next item is Commissioner Buckley, updates from Zoning Board of Appeals.
I have no new comments as well.
Okay.
Just to add one quick item to that, that we will have a meeting, the zoning board of appeals for the main meeting. You're about to find that out shortly. It's for variance request, dimensional variance for a short height variance.
Oh yeah, where was that? Where did I see that? Was that in the
Board of Stuff.
newspaper
It's
recently?
just posted in the
Like
newspaper.
8 inches or something like
Right,
that?
right.
Okay. All right. Any questions for Commissioner Buckley on ZBA related matters? Okay. And of course, Commissioner Shingles is not here tonight, so we won't have an update from Sidewalks and Pathways. Any other correspondence or any other reports that people have at this time? Okay, if not, we'll move on. So we'll move to public comment. So towards the beginning of every meeting, we invite the public to address the Planning Commission on items that are not on the agenda of tonight. We have a more extended public comment later in the meeting. So if anyone would like to address the Planning Commission on any item that's not on tonight's agenda, they're invited to do so at this time. If you're here in the live meeting, you'd come to the podium, give us your name and address for the minutes, and limit your comments to 3 minutes. If we have anyone online, we'll make it possible for them to address us as well. Do we have anyone? I don't think we have anyone.
We
do
don't.
Okay.
no.
Have we had anyone, has the Board of Trustees had people in the online?
We've had peop-
Okay,
Yeah, we've had some presenters, I think we had some public too. but,
Okay,
Definitely had some presenters.
all right. I don't think we have yet since we returned to face-to-face and have this capability now, but I'm sure it'll happen. Okay, well, there's no one in the audience tonight, so seeing none, we'll go ahead. I guess I didn't open it. So public comments open at 7:06. And seeing nobody in the audience tonight and not online, we'll go ahead and close that back up. So we're ready to move on to new business. We have, and I've never seen this particular code before, but we have P minor SBR 23-03, which is a minor site plan approval revision to a site plan that I guess we already approved, and a request for temporary relief from sidewalk construction. Is this something we already approved, or is it just minor? I'll go ahead and introduce Rodney and let you speak to this.
Thank you. So this is the first time you've seen something like this. The reason is minor site plan applications don't come to the Plan Commission. They're actually an administrative review process. So that, normally this is entirely within the hands of Peter Gallané. What you see in this site plan that presented is similar to what we see in other minor site plans. The minor site plan process is intended for smaller projects, additions like this. This is a small office addition to an existing industrial office building, and for other kind of more limited changes. There's a list in the ordinance of projects, of alterations and additions and such like that that can be reviewed administratively through this minor site plan. This one would have been reviewed and approved administratively, except for the requirement in our sidewalk and pathway ordinance for a sidewalk to be installed. Anytime a project comes in for site plan approval, we do have to address the requirement for a sidewalk, and per our policy, the policy adopted in 2018, for sidewalk, for temporary relief from sidewalk construction, only the Planning Commission can grant that temporary relief. Peter, zoning administrator, does not have authority to grant relief from that construction of that sidewalk. So what you have before you, although you have the site plan, our title of the report is actually minor site plan review, your action tonight is only on part of this. Your action tonight is focused specifically on the request for temporary relief from sidewalk construction. So the third page of the site plan set has that notation on there making the request. And that's what brings this plan to you. The other thing I would note in here is that this is, as was mentioned, this is an existing site. It was developed some time ago on Independence Drive. As such, it is considered to be a non-conforming site under our current ordinance. And the only reason that it's considered a non-conforming site is simply that it was developed before our current site development standards were put into place. Landscaping and lighting and parking lot design and such like that, those standards were different when this project was built under the old 91 ordinance. And so with that in mind, our section 12.5, our non-conforming site section, applies. And what that section basically says, as I think we've talked before, is it focuses in our review. It says, number one, that any public safety deficiencies must be corrected as part of the site plan, that improvement must be shown. And then it kind of has 10 broad categories of potential improvements, and that section asks for at least 3 of them to be included on the site plan as an improvement. This section also says that any improvements should be in general proportion to the scope of what is being proposed. So in this case, it's a small office addition, so the scope of the types of improvements are going to be similarly limited in scope. We can't, like I said, Peter can't not require the sidewalk to be constructed out front, because that's actually not a zoning ordinance requirement. It's a general ordinance requirement. There's no option for giving that exemption through what he can do as to the zoning ordinance. But as part of this, looking at this plan, we worked with the the applicant to identify improvements that would meet the section 12.5 standards. And so in the report, we just noted those, noted 4, 2 of which also qualify as part of the public safety improvements. They are providing a sidewalk to the new entrance from the barrier-free area. They're providing a dedicated barrier-free parking space and restriping those things. They're making some building improvements, and they're also proposing to make some exterior lighting improvements. Very small scale, but each of those changes allows the site to be consistent with that section 12.5. Basically, that non-conforming site section simply says we can approve a site plan that doesn't fix everything, but focuses on these specific things. And so that's the plan you see here fits that category very, very well. For example, we didn't talk at all about landscaping. That's not an item that we're focusing on. They chose not to focus on it, so we don't address landscaping. So with that in mind, I just would note in our report that the plan overall conforms with section 12.5 with those criteria, and also with the ordinance sections that apply. The one comment we made was that the exterior lighting change right now is vague. They proposed 2 options. So that will simply be subject to the zoning administrator's inspection when they make the change, either adding a shielding to the existing fixture or simply replacing the fixture with one that conforms to our ordinance. So that will be addressed as part of the inspection process. So in terms of your action tonight, as I said, your action tonight is limited to the sidewalk, the temporary relief from sidewalk construction request. Once you've taken action on that, whichever way you choose, then Peter would take his administrative action on the minor site plan. What we found is that the request is consistent with our policy. This is an industrial district, and land being in the industrial district is one of the reasons to grant temporary relief. There are no other sidewalks in this area. Well, there's certainly none on Independence Drive. The nearest ones are on the other side of Lincoln Road and up at Remus Road, a fair distance away. So from a staff perspective, we have no objection to the granting of temporary relief. In this case, it fits with the 2018 policy. We didn't include a separate set of motions. We just simply, under a recommendation, bolded a potential motion, if you choose, that would grant them their relief. This is your policy ultimately, and if you choose not to grant that relief, Peter would simply approve the site plan contingent upon the sidewalk actually being installed as shown on the plan. So with that, I'm happy to answer questions as we go.
Okay. Any immediate questions for Rodney? Okay, thank you. All right, so you've heard the introduction, and so this is before us, and so it's really open for discussion by you all.
I move to approve the temporary relief from sidewalk construction as requested on the P minor SPR 23-03 minor site plan dated April 4th, 2023, finding that the location of the proposed office addition to the existing contractor office and warehouse building at 2144 Independence Drive in the I-1 Light Industrial Zoning District is consistent with the established township policy for granting such relief.
Support.
So a motion was made by Lapp and was seconded by Gross. Discussion.
I'm trying to remember. We had talked about, I guess this is more of a curiosity than anything. We talked about when and what our review process for what the sidewalk policy might look like in the future. But I can't remember when or like what the timing is. That with a master plan review, or is that? When were we talking about taking up the policy again?
Yeah, I think that's what we recommended, because it actually would be very helpful to incorporate that policy, or whatever policy you choose, into the master plan. And that way, simply reference that. It ties, the zoning ordinance is tied closely to the master plan, so it would connect that very well.
Okay, thanks.
Other comments or questions? Okay, hearing none, I'll ask for a roll call vote, please.
Waring,
Yes.
Buckley,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
Lapp,
Yes.
Gross,
Yes.
LaBelle,
Yes.
and Squadrito.
Yes,
All right, motion carries, all yeses.
thank you. Okay, so we've taken care of our new business items, so we're ready to move on to other business, which is the master plan update. We had a nice discussion last month, and so we're back, and you have a document was at your station here, which is, or at your seat, which is kind of outlining some possible ways to go. So is there anything you want to say by way of introduction to this?
Yes, first I apologize that this came to you at the table tonight. This was intended to be more fleshed out, to have a full kind of list of the things that would be happening as part of the update, and a little broader conversation about the scope. I was sick last week at exactly the wrong period of time, and it just caught up to this in the last day or so. And so I apologize that you got it on short notice and you got a far shorter document than I intended. Just a couple of things to share. The table on the front is literally the first few steps. These are first step that you've already taken, review and determination that we need to update it. The second step is going to be talking about now, at least getting started. The third step in that table, the notice of intent. This is really the next formal element of the master plan process that's in the State Planning Act, and that is the township is required, once we start the process to update the plan, to simply notify everybody around us. When the State Planning Act was updated in 2008, one of the priorities that the group that really put a draft bill together, there was a number of people that came together in kind of an ad hoc committee, you might say, of professionals and legislators and others that talked about the priorities that they wanted to see. And one of the key priorities that all of the participants talked about was that they wanted to have more collaboration between governments, collaboration across boundary lines. And so this was one of the ways that they sought to encourage that by requiring notice to all of our neighbors at the time we start the planning process, simply so they can let us know if they have any concerns from their perspective. So it's not only our surrounding communities, the city and the surrounding townships in Isabella County, but there's also some other legal entities that we would need to talk to, like the railroad and utility companies we need to send notice to as well. So that is, those are the steps right now, and we'll have a better list, a more complete list for you for next time. But in addition to that, just to talk about kind of scope or focus, I just threw here a quick outline, and this some of it comes from our discussion last time, and especially the academic development elements was on there in housing, being right at the top of the list. These are some topics that I would suggest that we consider making potential focus areas as part of the update. Some of these are not in the current plan. For example, the plan for energy. As we know from the wind and solar energy field, the projects that are around us, and some potential kind of kicking the tires in the township for solar in particular. Nothing's come to pass in those, but we have a couple of folks just looking. there is an opportunity to include some policy language in the master plan to give direction to that. That's something that the energy companies very much want to see, because they want to know where they're welcome and where they're not. But even beyond that, at a more granular level, there's an opportunity to kind of provide some guidance as to what the priorities are from your perspective in the area of in our energy future. The transportation plan element, the current master plan does not do a lot with that at all. That's an opportunity to expand. It's an area where sidewalks, that we would actually include sidewalks as part of that transportation element. But that's a plan where we have the opportunity to talk directly to the road commission, especially to MDOT. Part of the State Planning Act there's language in there that when the Planning Act was adopted, there was language that was also adopted that talks about complete streets, the idea of designing streets for all the potential users, not just automobiles. And as part of that, these agencies, these road agencies, are required to at least consider local master plans as it relates to policy priorities and recommendations for transportation. So, for example, we could talk about future road extensions. We could talk about road design. When we had the project down here at Lincoln and Broomfield, where the township, we had to really be clear that we wanted those paved shoulders that you see along there. The road commission did not want to install them. And cost and other reasons that they cited. And we made it clear those were important to the township repeatedly. And ultimately, our West EDA district put some money on the table to help make sure those happened. And then the tribe also put some money into that to make sure those happened. So that kind of policy direction in our plan can help back us up when we're going to those agencies to say, we already told you this, we shared our transportation plan with you, so you know this is what we expect from you. So these are things where we can have some big impact, even on outside agency decision making. So this, as I said, this was just a quick, very broad outline. My thought would be as we would talk about, did we hit the mark on from a broad perspective on the things that you would like to see? Is there something missing here that you would also like to see included? Just from that very broad brush perspective at this point.
Okay, thank you. All right, so why don't we take a look at this list then and ask ourselves whether we think that is, as Rodney indicated, a good start, and to what extent that list is complete, or whether we think that there's something missing from that.
I'm just looking back at our notes. My goal was to try to look at last meeting, minutes from our last meeting, and what was captured there, and kind of see if they fit into the buckets that are here, that were provided today. At first glance, I didn't find anything kind of from our notes, from our discussions last month, that I couldn't find a home for in these buckets here. So generally speaking, I don't see anything that I don't have any concerns in terms of not having a broad category for something based on this plan.
I would say I agree with that. Thoughts from others?
Right. That's, I got a list of things. Oh, volunteer. This isn't what you
I think it is. Oh, yeah. No, that's him from the last minutes.
Personally, I was glad to see agricultural and preservation of rural character. I don't know that that was something we really touched on last week, but it was one that crossed my mind after the discussion, so.
I will say the discussion was very helpful. This was an easy list to put together because it was a wonderful discussion last night. I received back lots of positive comments from individual commissioners. And I thought it was very helpful to do this, and it will be, I think will continue to be a guide as we go forward.
Will we be, looking for a motion tonight in terms of, I see it, staff sends out notice of intent to update the township's master plan. Does that require any motion from us based on the conversation we're having tonight, or are we just kind of reviewing these kind of categories to see if we've missed anything?
At this point, there's no motion.
Okay.
So this is just reviewing
Yeah.
the discussion and follow up on last month's discussion. It's really more open to what you would like to do in terms of the plan update.
Yeah.
Like I said, the key, this little outline was just to give an idea of what we saw from our discussion as focus areas, and I just want to make sure we're on the same page with that.
Can I assume our discussions on Parks Recreation fall under item number 7?
Parks and Rec, and thank you for that, I appreciate that. The Parks and Recreation, we actually have a separate Parks and Rec plan that, as you know, we started an update. It kind of fell by the wayside, and that was not your fault, that was entirely mine, that I let that ball drop off my desk for a while. So those comments will all be part of that separate planning process. And the reason we have a separate Parks and Rec plan is simply because the Department of Natural Resources has guidelines for Parks and Rec plans related to being eligible for grant funding under their recreation programs. So they want to see a separate document for that. But yes, absolutely, all those comments will be captured within that.
I had thought that that was under the umbrella of number 9. What are the community facilities then?
Well, parks are certainly typically the community facilities plan is relatively straightforward, because one of the things we've tried to, as we talked about, one of the things we'd like to do in a master plan is have it policy focused. For example, we might, for the community facilities plan, sometimes these plans simply have policy priorities for siting of new township facilities. Right now, the township administration has been proceeding with an evaluation of future needs for the township in terms of facilities. Right now, of course, we have the township hall here. We have our water and sewer, wastewater facilities over on the northeast side. We have our water plant facilities on the southeast side. We have utility facilities also on the south side. They're spread around. While certainly I'm going to concentrate all of those, there are opportunities perhaps for collaboration if we bring some of the functions back together again as they once were when the township was smaller. So there's an evaluation going on about facility needs, and in terms of the master plan, where it might come into play is simply looking at policy priorities related to future needs for community support.
Okay.
That might be parks, and it certainly could be. We can have parks in here, and it could be, at least some of these comments could absolutely be part of that. They will definitely be more detailed captured as part of the Parks and Rec plan. But it would also include other things like the township hall or other facilities that we
Yeah.
might want to have.
Kind of like the critical infrastructure in a way. When I look at this, the one thing I'm thinking already, I guess, is that when we move to a later stage of soliciting input and kind of advertising that this is what we're doing, I guess I'd like to see these fleshed out in a way that people know when they're looking at them what we're thinking about. So, for example, like that one, maybe community facilities and infrastructure, or something like that. And then in 10, I wonder if motorized and non-motorized transportation plan,
Okay.
just to again show that those are falling under, you know, that both of those are included in that. And I wonder in terms of energy, whether you want to or not, use the word renewable or something along those lines.
Is that maybe just an effort to be more specific to maybe alleviate some questions that may come up? Is that kind of the idea? I mean, 'cause
Well,
I
actually,
agree with it.
actually, my idea was more to let people know the type of input we're looking for and the types of things that may fall under that, to be a little more descriptive, I guess.
So the public has an understanding of exactly, we're giving an example so the public, when they read it,
Yeah.
know.
I mean, I wasn't
what-
trying to pre-focus it toward any particular outcome, if that was the concern. I was more, like, when I look at transportation, let people know we're not just talking about the roads, but we're also talking about the pathways and sidewalks and things of that nature.
So that, and what we could do for next time is we can actually flesh this out with some of those, if you think of these as chapter headings, for example, and then some of these, the subchapters or
Yeah.
paragraphs within that, subsections within that. We can add some of those underneath it to start fleshing it out as well. If, to a large extent, what we're looking at here is the bones of the master plan
Yeah.
potentially. And we'll start adding, you know, the tendons and sinews and muscles and other things onto it. That's what you're talking about.
Okay. Will there be a separate category for gristle?
Well, is that the zoning plan?
I don't know.
Some people might say that. No, I certainly, we'll have the
It's
details.
It's the one that I don't want to bite into, let's put
That's
it that
right.
way.
I think I have an obscure question, and I don't even know if it's pertinent, but Phil's mention of it reminded me. For under community facilities, and I think that, what's the phrase? Now it's already slipping from my mind, the phrase that you had used in terms of, what did you ask about? How, if it fell under community facilities, like, I've lost the word. Like what the road commission would be or something like that. What am I thinking of? What's the,
Infrastructure?
yeah,
No.
critical infrastructure, is that, yeah.
Yeah, critical infrastructure.
Would that be, in a former life, I used to work a little bit with some external agencies, and I know that there was a time, you know, with like some of the large telephone companies, the cellular companies, AT&T, Verizon, that sort of thing, wanting, I don't know if you'd call them easements, but access essentially to for what would be considered microgrids for like the future of transportation. You know, you talk about being able to self-driving vehicles and stuff like that, needing policy for being able to place microgrids at certain places in the communities. But then I know that there was an effort to maybe do that at the statewide level as opposed to doing it at the township level to try to have a common standard for that. Do we need to accommodate for those types of, like, I guess, external issues at this point in our, if we're talking about master planning, I guess, you know?
Well, the question of self-driving cars is obviously coming. It exists. There are a number of cities that allow self-driving vehicles as an experiment or test. It's certainly out in California, San Francisco, Arizona, someplace. So it is coming. I think that it's certainly a technology that will eventually become quite common. The state took a step by updating the Telecommunications Act to add these provisions for what they call microcell installations, and this is the 5G wireless rollout.
Right.
That we also have to follow. These microcell sites can be essentially installed with an administrative approval at most. In some cases, we don't even know they're there.
Yeah.
But for the larger ones, at the most we can ask for is a administrative approval, and I think there's a $20 fee or something we can charge,
Okay.
according to the state act. So those are intended to create the grid that will support things like self-driving cars.
Yeah, like that dense kind of connected grid and stuff. That makes sense. I just didn't know if it was stuck in my brain, and I didn't know if that was something that we needed to account. But it sounds like the state has already kind of paved the way for that when it comes.
Yeah, it's there, at least in a rough form. There are other opportunities. I mean, one of the things with self-driving cars is the idea of basically you just simply call up the car and it comes. You know?
Right.
So in order to have that, you have to have places where those cars can exist for a time until they're needed. There's been, I remember seeing the proposal. I'm sure it's probably a patent type thing, where somebody had them stacked up in New York City, where they would literally fold up into themselves, and so you could pack 10 into a regular parking space. And
Sure.
when they need one, they would just simply roll out. So those kinds of technologies will be coming. It's just like when we updated the zoning ordinance, we added the food truck court because food trucks had become all the rage, and there was an interest. I haven't seen it come to pass since, but there was an interest, and there's still, you hear talk every once in a while about projects where you could have multiple food courts, food trucks come onto a site and have that infrastructure there to support them.
Yeah.
So yeah, thinking ahead, looking beyond the horizon, that kind of technology is certainly there. We've already talked about the EV charging. I think that was part of our discussion last time, and it's certainly a big discussion going around the planning world, providing for public electric vehicle charging. That's another element of that same conversation about the future of transportation.
Okay.
It's valuable to try to. Can we think ahead of the technology? I'm not sure we really can, but we at least be thinking about the technology we're seeing, coming.
Yeah.
And how do we deal with it?
That makes sense. Yeah, no, I mean, I know the self-driving is the big thing, but I think the microgrid stuff kind of is, I think there's a lot of aspects to it in terms of use that even go beyond, automotive and driving and stuff like that. And it's just, so that makes sense. I just wanted to clarify that. The only other thing I'd point out, Rodney, I know this is nitpicking, especially if you're sick, but that heading on the last paragraph, if you're going to give this to the board or anything, I think you meant a separate data book as opposed to date book.
I certainly did. Thank you.
So I guess I'll ask just a slightly broader question. You're recommending a policy approach, which I think I understand and I think makes sense. Should we assume that will be, the development of those policies will be what, us sitting around with the consultant kind of in a back and forth sort of thing, or getting example language to look at, or I guess I'm curious to know what that process looks like.
Well, it's interesting that, go back up here. I've been pondering this a little bit more. As I mentioned, we have this master plan update, and then we have this Parks and Rec plan project that was stalled. And I've been pondering how to approach both these elements. The city, for example, did them both together. They actually essentially were parts of the same document. They broke out. They're like book 1, book 2, book 3, kind of the master plan. I'm not sure that they got entirely the result they wanted out of that. They're good documents, but one of the things I was considering, I've been talking about policy approach to this, considering the idea of making a little bit of an adjustment in how I recommend we proceed with this. I've spent many years in the consulting world. I've updated with many plan commissions, updated master plans and zoning ordinances and other projects. And I'm almost thinking, and this is just to let you know my thoughts at the moment, I'm almost thinking to actually go back and maybe look at this as doing the master plan in-house, where I would work with you on that element, and we'd walk through that, and then perhaps having actually a consultant come in and help us with the Parks and Rec plan side of things. So that's you might call that an internal conversation right now for me. It's also one internal to our administration, and we'll be coming back to you, I would say, next month with a clear recommendation on that. But I'm kind of thinking a little differently on it, and it's largely because when you're looking at master plan and looking at trying to do it from a perspective of these are the things we want. That's really what policies are. These are the things we want to have happen. That's something I think that can be done. It's certainly I'm certainly very familiar with, and I think it's very valuable. It provides guidance that then supports decision making with the zoning ordinance very well. So that's something I think we might be able to simply do together, and then have, as I said, have some assistance with the Parks plan, especially since, like I said, unfortunately, that one got kind of set aside. It's a more intensive. There's more data involved. There's more graphics involved. So that one might actually be the better option to go the other way. We'll have something for you firmly on that next month. But in terms of the policies, this is something where this is your document. There may be some elements, I mean, as you mentioned, that the agricultural element was not part of the discussion last month, but it is absolutely an important part of this community. The rural area of the township is still a very important element in amenity of the community, and we hear it all the time. And there's a great benefit to the residents of the more urban areas, both in the city and the township, that within 2 miles they can be in farmland. Frankly, in many cases, within a mile. And that's still a relatively rare thing for urban dwellers. And so protecting those rural areas, and I'm not saying preventing all development, I'm not saying put a wall up between them, but ensuring that we continue to have these rural environments and protecting them to function as they should, in terms of ensuring that we have essentially a functioning rural economy. Not just preservation of ag land, for example, but actually preservation of the agricultural business community as best we can. And supporting that agricultural business community is an important element of the planning process. So that was something, certainly where there are opportunities where I may suggest something to you, because I know it's important from my perspective. I'll do that. It's still going to be your plan, and it will be your decisions as to what gets included and what doesn't. And so my goal is always just simply to facilitate that. I'll certainly we'll bring our perspective, but ultimately you are the decision makers with regards to this master plan.
Any thoughts that people have at this time? Have we given you enough to go on to get ready for next month?
I think so. Yeah, I appreciate the comments, and so we'll flesh this skeleton out a bit more. We'll also give you a full tentative schedule, so you see all the steps. You'll see where public participation comes in. We'll have some proposals essentially for public participation. So you'll see all of that as part of our next meeting, and we'll go from there.
Sounds good to me. Thank you. Let's see. So that was our other business item. So next item is extended public comment. This is the portion of the meeting where individuals are invited to address the planning commission on any item, whether it's on tonight's agenda or not. When we open extended public comment, folks in the room would come to the podium, give us your name and address for the minutes, and limit your comments to 5 minutes on any issue. Or if there's anyone online, they can make their desire to speak known, and we'll facilitate that. So extended public comment is open at 7:45.
I still have no one in the room. Online, I mean.
Okay. Should we make this we've done this before. Do you want to say something about the project?
I think this is a great
Public
time.
care store?
Yep.
My name is Tara Green, Union Township Administrative Assistant. So Amy Peak, I don't know if you guys all know her, but she's the building rental clerk. And we brainstorm ideas off each other all the time. And we came up, one of my friends asked if we wanted to donate to the care store. Their work was doing something like that. And we thought, well, can Union Township staff do that? So we reached out to the manager and we kicked off a whole drive for the residents to come in and drop off stuff. So Union Township is partnering with the care store. It's located in the Strickler Center down on High Street. And their mission is providing essential personal and household items to people in need with care and kindness. And they are accepting personal hygiene items and household cleaning products that are not eligible for retail purchase through bridge cards to anyone in Isabella County that has a referral from one of their partnering agencies. So we kicked this off on April 10th. It runs through May 5th. We've had quite a few people bring in donations. I don't know if you noticed the box out there, but we actually had to make another box because it was filling up. So we're doing good with it. If you guys want to donate anything, there's flyers out there with the acceptable items. There's even a QR code out on the box. If you scan it, it takes you right to their page. You can go to like their wish list on Amazon and have items sent to them. So it's a good thing. So if you guys want to donate, feel free. We're doing it till May 5th. Amy and I are actually going to go down on Thursday and take a tour of the care center or the care store. So, any questions? Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Certainly encourage donations. We'd love to have a big mountain of stuff to share. We, in fact, love to have so much that we have to find another spot to put it because it's filling the alleyway. But please consider making donations.
Excellent. Any other public comments? Okay, thank the public for their comments. Go ahead and close that back up at 7:48. Then we move to final board comment. Any comments from board members? I guess I'll just ask in general, how is the May agenda shaping up?
Well, we have the master plan on it. I think we have one application. The road commission has a project off of the end of Transportation Drive that they submitted. It's a preliminary site plan application for that.
Okay.
I hear rumors of others, but we haven't
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
any firm.
I mean, we want lots of projects, right? But we also want time to do our master plan, so we're kind of, I guess we have a conflict of interest there. But anyway, so it sounds like we'll have some time in May to have a decent discussion, next steps. So any other comments from board members? Okay, if not, then it seems like people are ready to go back out and enjoy some of the daylight that we still have at this time. So we've completed our agenda, so we'll stand in adjournment until third Tuesday in May.